everybody. It's me, Peerless Drew. 'Tis I. Today, we will be discussing the subject of the recent YouTube video, Mechanical Alliance Thunder Warrior. It's very good figure. Alright. It's kind of a complicated figure. The instructions are pretty terrible. I feel fairly certain I brought them up with me. Here we go. Let me show you something that's terribly awry with these directions, if I can convey this successfully. So you start off real nice. It comes in robot mode. And the instructions are... I'm trying to get a light that's not gonna... Sorry, it's pretty bright. I was trying to respond to people like, it's too dark, I can't see, it's dark. Anyway, so, you know, we're in robot mode. Everything's well and good. It's telling you how to put some of the wings together. And then we get to this step, step 4, where the arms are already mostly in plane mode. And then in the next step, they tell you to flip this thing down. I mean, it suddenly jumped to plane mode, closer to plane mode, and now we're actually going back to robot mode through the sequence of steps. So, I didn't even bother looking at the rest of these, but I assume the instructions are pretty badly out of order in other places too. So, rarity for me, because I always like to look at the instructions to make sure I'm not missing a step or not, you know, maybe, you know, you don't want to fail to notice a joint or something. And so I tend to really look at the instructions, but those were terrible, and I just had to guess my way through this. It's a pretty cool figure. I'm going to refer to a frame from my video, because getting the arms just so right away, I mean, later on you could adjust it, but I just want to show you how to get it right the first time. So what we're going to do is we're going to compress the... Don't worry about that up there. We're focused on the shoulder joint here. But we want to compress it. So it goes like this, it goes like this. So we want to compress it. And then we're turning the hand outward, like 90 degrees. And we're going to fold over the thumb and curl up all the fingers. They're pretty nice little fingers. They're pinned so they don't fall apart. But we're just trying to get the hand as compact and flat in this direction as we can. And then it has to be turned sideways, I think. We can always adjust that later, but I'm trying to make this get it right the first time, you know. All right. So that's one arm done. He has this is a loose panel, so it tends to get under his foot, and then he's not able to stand properly anymore. So that's. The materials on this are pretty good. It's interesting. They used a lot of the sort of the softer, easier to mold rubber in their design, and I think it worked in their favor. It seems very sturdy. It, you know, you could, I mean, outside of, you know, this thing's got God knows what safety failures, you could practically see something like this at retail. Not from Hasbro to Takara, because apparently they don't want to just go ahead and do the MPM line like cleverly and correctly. They keep doing some pretty sloppy, you know, hide the robot under the vehicle, and especially in the case of Starscream, I mean, they hid the robot under the vehicle. It's even from the top you can see bits of robot sticking out. It's the worst plane mode I've seen. All right, we're also going to open up these, like untab and kind of unfold the forearms there. That comes into play later, but you know, we're just getting it done since we're touching the arms. So we pop that loose and flip it over. And I suppose my camera could be higher up. I can refer to my thing. It's a big plane, yes indeed. All right. So we're going to flip this up. Yeah. We're going to flip this up, and we're going to turn the bicep inward. So now the sort of the smooth part of the arm is facing away from his hips. God, if I'm wrong about this, like, don't even refer to it. I'm sorry. We're just gonna flip that up and rotate the bicep in. We can go ahead and kind of get rid of the wings. So let's pull them out of the way, and we can do some more back stuff since we're here before we get into the arms any further. So we flip up this armature. It doesn't come packaged like this, so you have to kind of put it in this position to actually have it be right. But you flip this up. You can kind of get these out of the way. Doesn't matter. We're trying to flip these around. There's a literal clearance, like it hits. But unlike a lot of figures, you don't feel like you're going to break it if you just kind of tweak it a little bit. It's just rubbery plastic. So get that in. You can also kind of overextend this to get it above where those need to be, but then you have to kind of get it to clear either way. So it is what it is. Actually, I forgot to flip out these veins. That's for robot mode. In fact, that's not in the video either. I just noticed that. That comes from abandoning the instructions. You know, I just didn't. So we're just kind of tweaking this past there. There we go. I want to make sure they're both straight. And then we can tab these bits together. Off camera, I'm sorry. I'm that guy. I'm that guy that does it off camera. I mean, it's inappropriate otherwise. So we flip over these things, and we're just getting them lined up. It all just kind of turns into a continuous surface. And I like to keep these open. The instructions will probably tell you, oh, go ahead and put them down. But they're just going to get thrown loose later anyway, and it actually helps get things past other things, because there are some other clearance issues you have to wrestle with. So with the wings and that out of the way, we are flipping this up and we're rotating the arm itself back, and then we're closing this down over it again. So now the arm looks like this, and we still have the kind of curved part of the arm facing outward, and we have the mechanical part of the arm facing inward. If I'm wrong about that later, I'm going to kick myself, but I'm pretty sure that's right. So we have that. All right. Now this is this is step 4 from the instructions. Like it tells you take the wings down, and then you're here. You are not. Alrighty. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep all this together. They might not have it tabbed together right at the factory. If you find that the sort of interior red plate can move, then it's not tabbed in properly. I may never go back the other direction, because getting to plane's the hard part, but depending on our time. But there is a tab hole inside this red piece near the hinge, and there is a tab on this. And so when you close this up, you can capture that tab, and the tab hole capture this here, and that red panel doesn't move around, which is handy because you got to do this. So this opens for no reason I can discern. I guess so his arm can swing forward or something. But basically there's so you got this part, you're kind of holding on to it. There's a kind of a loose swivel or double joint there, double hinge. Just don't rip it off. But the goal here is to unpop this. It goes in that little tab there, kind of towards the front. And you're going to slide it back, and almost like such a small amount that you're like, they really couldn't avoid this step? This is weird. Oh, it needs to be like 1 millimeter back. Oh shit, we better add a joint. And then we snap this into that. So we've popped it open, slid it back, and popped it closed. And then we can kind of deal with this mechanism. So we're popping this open. Again, this slot captures that tab, so remember that in the other direction. And then we get this around. I mean, it doesn't help to open this up at all. Like, there's just like a little bit of a clearance issue. You can open that a little further to avoid it a little bit, but you're basically flipping this just perfectly around. So now the mechanical parts are sticking upward. Boy, do I hope that's right. Well, it's only upward because I've lifted this, so it's facing outward. Here. And then this part, once you have everything lined up, this flips around, and I could see pulling this. This is softer plastic, like just pulling the pin out of the joint there. But if you're careful and you get it lined up first, you're not going to have a problem. It's later on when you're trying to get this to tab into the wings that it drives you nuts. Let me look at my arrangement here. Okay, yes. So this tab, this whole time, our goal is to make sure that it is pointed downward. And like hypothetically later on when it's back in this position, you want that tab to be facing downward, and you want the fist all curled up like this. And I feel like this seems out of position, so I'm just gonna have to think about it a little bit, but that's the idea. You also have to make sure that you bring these nozzles down. You can do it before you fold up the whole back of the plane, and you want to turn them sideways, because if they are flat, then you're not going to stitch this thing together, and it's like 18 steps back at that point. I've been in situations where I forgot to fold it flat while I was practicing, and you know, at that point you just start transforming it in the other direction because it's too late. I've tried to pick at it with tools, you know, correct it. It's hard to correct once you've stitched a bunch of other shit together, so make sure you do it early in the process. I'm still kind of debating whether it's supposed to be like pulled all the way down that slider, because I mean the slider exists. Why does it exist? Because you're supposed to pull it down. Because in the up position, that's definitely robot mode, because it puts it closer to his back, so you don't see like a slider. But I gotta think in plane mode it's supposed to hang a little further down for whatever reason. So we'll entertain that idea. But so this is what we're aiming for in terms of the arms. We want this flat and this tab pointed exactly downward. We want the elbow collapsed. If you have the arm too straight, there's not enough room for the hand anymore. So you want to make sure that the elbow's like collapsed, and also collapsed so that it's going towards the center of the plane when you get everything together. Remember, this whole thing flips around, so you're kind of doing it backwards until you do that flip around, and now the tab's facing down, etc. Kind of like this one. Right now, the tab is facing up. I found it. So we're gonna pop this down, slide it back slightly, and pop it back up, as discussed. Make sure it pops. We're gonna open this up. We're going to kind of lift this thing out. It tabs to the body there. Not too stiff a tab. It does kind of help to kind of twist it in a, you know, don't try to pull it straight out, but kind of like rock it out. Rock it out, dude. And then we're going to flip this bit around. So now it's facing down. And we're going to close this off. And we're going to use the winglet, now that everything's lined up properly. We're going to use the winglet to line everything up and lock everything together. So that's kind of the premise. When you have to put a limb like this in such a crazy configuration, it just really helps to like sort out like how it's supposed to go. And then I'm trying to figure out, I want to kind of preview like how everything should be aligned when everything's put together. So I'm just going to, ahead of time, just temporarily, I'm going to put these arms all the way back into like jet position, and then I'm going to show you what we're going to do with the arms later, when it's hard when this thing's still in the way. But so the arms are supposed to be back here like this, and they're past the this is driving me nuts. Yeah. Hold on a second. I've been lying to you. No, we want it. Alright, I'm going to just stop and think before I lose my temper. Get like Jobby and start throwing shit. I don't know why that's fucking with me so much. I was really sure looking at the picture that I had to turn the right way, but now I'm wondering what I'm doing wrong. See, the legs are hips are going to end up in here. And the whole thing's going to be, yeah, and the arms approach from the bottom. So if the arms approach from the bottom, I mean, Goddamn, the tab has to be pointing up. But that puts that out of position. That's just not right. These things are supposed to be in the middle. Huh. I've lost my mind. I know these come together. They're like between the legs when you're done. And yeah, I mean, your goal is going to be like this configuration. Let me take another drink real quick. Your ultimate goal, once you pack the legs in, you're not doing the arms yet. Don't actually do this yet. But your ultimate goal is to have captured that nozzle with the plates. You want these tabs to be pointed downward. I got it stuck in my head that they were going to be tabbing into the legs. They're not. They tab in the wings. So, and then these actually go together. So it helps to have the whole thing kind of out a little bit, and then like already plugged into the legs, and then bring it together like that. That's the goal. But for now, we got to get these things out of the way because there's other shit to do. You do want to kind of bend the arms out like this so they're out of the way of the legs while you get them prepared. And then there's like a point. Well, you'll see. Anyway, let me just kind of put this back where it should have been if I hadn't fucked with it. All right. So the arms are still loose, and the torso is still completely transformed. So to continue, we're gonna flip open these bits. We're gonna lift the windshield. This is supposed to be arranged like this. It actually matches the what do you call it? That fancy Hasbro officially approved one that is Blitzwing from the movie, but it doesn't transform. It's like an action figure instead of a transformer. That's how it's arranged in like the CGI art and stuff. It's turned around and kind of bent forward like a cod piece. So we reverse that to put it back. It's actually the back of the windshield. So the idea is this goes back like that. And then you also have the front of the plane to contend with. And these are like, the arms are kind of like a little too far forward. I'm getting in my way right now. Okay. So this just kind of pops into place there. It kind of fits over like a ridge of plastic there. So when you bring this up, it kind of drags the head down out of the cockpit. So the head's just on like a stem, a fixed stem. And going to robot mode, you have to just kind of feed the head up through so that it doesn't get caught. And then the stem pushes it up. And the whole idea is that you end up back with this tabbed in. And all this shit tabbed in. And the head got caught here, so it's a little bit off. There we go. So that's the idea ultimately, but we're going in the other direction. So we're bringing this down, bringing this up. We do want to turn it around so that the back of the cockpit lines up with the plane. So we're tabbing it like that. We can just go ahead and put it away. I'm just trying to get, the legs are really long, so they keep making me push it off camera. All right. This part can be a bit tricky, not this part, but I just have to do the nose cone real quick, so just bear with me. So we're going to flip that out from inside the nose cone. It goes like that. And then we can flip out the tip of the nose cone. Like that. It's a good mechanism. You see that a lot. Lemon Tree Toys did the same thing, where you just have, like it accordions in, so now it fits inside like a tapered cylinder. It fits inside itself, so it's a good way to do it. So we're just locking all that together. And our goal is eventually to get that lined up just like that. But we're not quite there yet, because before we put this nose cone away, we have to take advantage of its shape to get these other bits. And this is kind of a pain in the ass. It's a clearance problem. I don't know how you could correct for it, but you do have to kind of like develop a technique for doing this. So in robot mode, these tend to flop, but in robot mode, these are flipped out like this. And in vehicle mode, you would want them tucked under. So we could do it on both sides. We have these to contend with. They're kind of in the way. But the problem we face, And I'll just completely discombobulate this just to kind of show you if I can. Oof. You have to go so far back. But the problem is that these decorative pieces, they have to kind of get tucked into the nose cone, which is kind of a pain in the ass, but it can be done. You just have to kind of overextend the nose cone upward. And I don't know what's not lining up. The stupid head fell out. But you do have to kind of tilt the nose cone, I guess, down. But our goal is to... It's tricky. Hold on a second. You have to understand, this was on locals.com 2 weeks ago. So I shot this 2 weeks ago. So I was in practice 2 weeks ago. So it takes me a minute to realize what's going on. All right, so. I'm just making sure on the behind the scenes here that this is still lined up properly. It's just not. Why? Okay. So you have to tilt it up. There we go. Because you're trying to get this bracket between the windshield and the little part that flipped. So you're not going to ever be able to feed it in from the bottom because the part that flipped is in the way. So we're tilting this way up, the nose cone, so that we can clear the part of this that kind of sticks out a little bit. So we're tucking that in there. Once we've tucked it in, then we can turn our attention to lining everything up and closing those two halves together. So they go like that. So they're closed up. And then finally, with the arms out of the way, we can take these bits, which really kind of hold the whole thing together properly. So we're just, not yet. This thing came loose. It's a little tricky to keep it all lined up, but let me just kind of grip it like that. But we're just kind of maneuvering this in. It has tabs, like ridges on it. So it does kind of catch everything, but like that tab has to get put behind, and you just kind of pop it into position. And if you get it right, it'll really hold the nose cone together pretty well. So we'll do the same thing over here. Just getting that stitched in. And now the whole nose of the plane is done. So we can bring the arms forward just to keep them as far out of the way because we need to make room for the legs. We're going to turn the cockpit around, and you can see the legs end up. The legs are going to end up like this, right? So we want to make sure that we straighten the legs out properly. Like if you had them all posed up, these hinge joints are, it's like a really tight, like nylon on nylon joint. And you could probably break the mushroom on this if you held the leg and tried to like manipulate the hip joint. So I can't recommend strongly enough that in all cases, but especially if you just assume that you should hold the piece that you're moving and the piece it's, you know, the two halves of the joint, and never try to, you know, I'll just hold the foot, and you know, that's an extreme, but you just want to make sure that you actually hold the joint, but you want to make sure that this is real straight. The other one's going when I'm trying to do this one. So we're trying to make sure it's real straight compared to the top of this platform. That will help us down the road. We want to make sure the legs are completely square because you might have posed them out to articulate them, but we want them completely flat. All right. And they can still be spread out a little bit because we're kind of heading for that position. We want them spread out. The wings can kind of be in the way sometimes, but we're just going to go ahead and lay this out. Remember, we're fighting to keep this nozzle vertical at every moment that we encounter it. We want it to be vertical, otherwise it will be in the way. We do have to flip up the insides of the thighs. So there's two panels here. I'll use a spudger to make sure that I actually get it started. But it just flips. It flips up. You can see that's going to fit around the jet nozzle. This one flips up too. Electric boogaloo. And then we want to take the knee flaps and lift them up. They're just kind of on like a ball. A lot of this stuff is made out of this sort of unpaintable nylon. Someone asked if the paint comes off of it. I haven't experienced anything like that, but I could see it happening just because some of this, it's really well constructed because it's made out of that material. It has a lot of, it has flex, but it holds its shape really well. But there's a lot of this that's made out of that. So it's kind of hard to paint. So this is everything I think we need to do to this side of the leg. So we're just going to lay the thing down the other way. And I think we better fix the camera because we need to focus on what's going on with the old legs. Here we go. Just spread them out as much as you need. Just remember these flaps are good. Cute. Spread them out as much as you need, but just remember those flaps need to go around the nozzle. So they need to stay inside that cupola there. Alright, so let's do a leg. This should, if this hadn't become discombobulated effing with it, then it would have been here. And it does tab, but the tab doesn't really stay in. And I don't think there's like another tab on the other side. So it's like an alignment tab. Like it should be here. Pretend it is, you know. But we're just going to move that out of the way. The foot's become a bit discombobulated, but it's, you know, that's what it's supposed to be at this point. All right. So make sure I get the order right. This bit is actually tabbed in, and it's really important that you tab it in, especially going in the other direction when you got to tab it in. But you'll note that there's a peg, a hole there, and it's like the inside of the front edge of the tail fin. That's the tail fin. And there's a hole, and it doesn't match a peg on the other tail fin. They both have holes. And the reason for that is there's a long peg here inside the leg. And when you stitch this together, it's hard to talk. When you stitch it together, you have to take the peg hole and put it on the peg for everything to be kind of stable. Because you want this part stable because like this part's trying to kind of tab into it and this part's trying to kind of tab into it. So you just got to make sure. Does this tab? Yes, it does. So I'll show you this tab real quick because it's all going to fall apart here in a second when I start doing it. But there's a slot on the inside of this piece, on this inside of the leg, and there is a tab here. And that slot, sure as shit, when you have everything lined up, you have to kind of, there's like this double hinge here, and you do have to have it walked all the way back. But this does tab in here. It actually holds better than the other one does, so it's, you know, it's there. It is a tab. But like I said, get this out of the way so we can see. But if we untab this peg that was holding the whole thing together, and this is out of the way, we can, it's like on a double joint. It does need to be up here anyway, so send it that direction. But this part hinges out. So we'll go back to the detailed part of this. All right. So once that's out of the way, you can lift the foot up. I swear you can. So we can lift the foot up, and then we can continue rotating that around, and we can pay attention to the foot here for a second. It does some weird shit that isn't intuitive, I don't think. But this part has to go here. This part, you need to rotate the whole assembly, and then separate the flap and the landing gear, and rotate just the landing gear. And it all ends up like this. I'm just making sure I'm not crazy. I feel like these tabs somewhere, and I'm like, where do they tab? Or was this foot just backwards the whole time? No, it wasn't, because it was like this. So it would have been like that. So that's robot mode. And then I know these both go, so 1, 2. These tabbed to something. Well, that's because they tab that way in robot mode. Anyway, that's when those tabs are used. So you're trying to arrange the foot so it's like this. Ignoring the tail here. But that's your goal for the foot. So this was turned and this was turned. Like the whole assembly was turned and then just the wheels were turned. The wheels are kind of folded and tucked in because we are maximizing how much space we have right here. So we want a big open gap there. For now, we're going to leave that partly open. Then the foot continues coming around this way, and it doesn't really tab in, if I remember correctly. I'm looking. No, it doesn't really tab in, it just kind of sits there. But it works. It's not a big deal. So that goes like that. Then this bit, we can bring the front fin over. We can flip this up. We can flip this over. I did it early in the video just because I knew I had to sit on top of it. Like I had to turn it upside down and it would sit on this fin. So I was like, I'll make a flat spot there. While this is like this, you can take this. And I don't know, there's probably a debate to be had whether the wing should be folded this way or this way. I find it sticks out more when you fold it that way. And so this way seemed more compact to me, and this seems to cover it better. So I vote for the wingtips ending up pointing in the same direction as the tail fin by the time you're done folding them. But anyway, this comes around and it actually tabs. It's got a hole and there's a little post there. So you just want to make sure it's square so the hole can go in the post. Otherwise it'd be in the way, so don't do it. And then this part flips down here. And this accordion's over here. We do have to pay attention to this one flap here. Let me fix it real quick. This flap has to be like this. And yeah, I did this earlier in the video. That's why this was in the way still. But this, you have to bring it around. And it actually kind of helps you line up. Like you're never quite sure when you do the hip pads, like how far do you take them? Because there's not really a stop. You can go too far with it. But you want to go just enough that it mates up with this panel properly. That's how far. And then I'm sorry, I forgot to do it while I was still doing upper body stuff. But you flip this up and rotate it around, and it just lines up with that panel that you've set up. So I'll do the other side real quick. I apologize. Like, why was this? I don't remember having to deal with that before. And the reason was I didn't have to deal with that before. But this bit, I'm kind of glossing over now just because I'm embarrassed that I got that order wrong, but this bit kind of goes like that on a double hinge, and we want to send it back this way. It does capture a tab here on this thing, and then this lines up to meet it. Not as far as it'll go, but, and then we can bring down this and rotate it around. Make sure you can kind of bend it a little bit so the tabs pass. Alrighty. Now we're back on the top. Let me just get the other leg done real quick. Yeah, because I haven't done that yet. So this can go all the way up. You have to get this untabbed, bring it out. Then you can start bringing the leg over. Bring that around. We want to rotate this whole thing. And then we want to flip it open and rotate just the wheels. We want to make sure that the wheels kind of end up tucking into the toe a little bit. We flip up the back of the foot like that. And we take this whole assembly and lay it down right there. Get a good look. It's the last time you'll see it, and it needs to be that way. Then we do this bit. Push it forward on its little hinge so that it can capture that peg. And then flip it down and bring it around. Like that. And I didn't quite finish doing that on this side, so I'll just do that on this side. Bet you didn't think I was going to say it that way. Now we have to get these situated. It's kind of like the last step for this main component. We're just going to take this, and it was down like this, and it's now like this. You can see the whole thing. Keep the engine flipped out for now. But we just want to make sure that this stays together. This captures there. That tab goes in there. We look around the other side. This, there's like a little tab on the rocket nozzle. The jet exhaust port. I don't know. But you can see there's like, try to point at it. Do I not have a pointing one? So there's a little tab here on the portal, and there's a surface here. It's made up of something that came before. That tab can actually kind of catch over across this, and it actually kind of helps hold it together a little bit. So just make sure it actually goes there. And then you can flip this bit around, and it lines up with the what used to be the foot, and it captures, it tabs in there. See? That's our goal. Let's finish up the other side real quick. So we're gonna make sure those tabs get captured. We're gonna make sure, oh, you do have to make sure the foot can be kind of too slumped in, and so you do want to make sure that there's a, I'm gonna have to take it apart to show you, but there is a tab here, and there is space under the edge of the foot for that tab to get caught underneath. So when you put this together, you just want to make sure that the foot actually ends up on top of that tab like you want. Both of these need to be up. And then you can capture with the rocket nozzle, with the jet nozzle. And then you do want to flip in this bit and capture the back of the foot there. So the legs are all ready. And now we're going to do one of the trickiest bits, is to get everything to line up simultaneously. Make sure these flaps are out. Let's do some checks. You know, we are go for arm transformation. Let's get a good look at what this is supposed to look like. So these flaps are up, the wheels are out of the way. The flaps don't have to be too hyperextended, but they just do need to be kind of out of the way. It's easier. We want to make sure that this jet nozzle is going to stay vertical during this process. That'll really help it stitch together properly, and it's really tricky to get. So I'm going to transform the wings a little bit. There's a little nylon like post and peg. I think it could break, so be careful. So this is out of the way, and our goal is to get the arm, and that's why I don't close off this bit yet. This part here stays in the front for now. But the arm is going, it used to be plugged in here at the front slot, and it's going to go to the back slot. And so the whole thing's on a little swing arm. It's going to end up on the back slot. Remember that the winglet is kind of holding it all together, so it helps to just kind of maintain that construction. And our goal, keep that out of the way for a second. Our goal is to get the arms, it's not too hard to do, but you want to pass the arms through so that they're lined up with the legs like that, so that they've kind of gone over the legs. And then we can talk about some stitching. This nozzle, if it ends up wrong, is a real problem. So remember I showed you earlier how the arms are supposed to come together without all the other shit in the way. So now the rubber meets the road, and we actually have to do it. There's a tab on the bottom of the arm. If you see that tab, point to it. That tab right there on the bottom edge of the arm. It has to plug into a slot on the back of the thigh. In the process, and I think maybe I got the hands backwards because I think they should be like this. Sorry. I turned it 180 degrees to point up. Let's see if that works out. But you can plug that tab into the thigh. The other leg keeps getting in the way, I'm sorry. But it's really hard to do that later, and it helps keep everything lined up, so good idea to do. You can see how the hand kind of fits in that space. And I was wrong about the hand. It has to be 180 degrees the other way than I had it. I think. Hold on, let me double check. We want to make sure this is right because in a little while we're going to have to close. Maybe I was right in the first place. Let's just turn it around the other way. Yeah, I was right in the first place. So we do want to get this tabbed. We can kind of pull on the arm to do it. The arm will kind of meet the leg as needed. And the hand, you son of a bitch, stop it. Stop it. I don't know, man. I thought I had this. I know the hand has to be like, you know, kind of compressed so that it'll fit. I saw a video, I kind of learned some of the transformation of this by watching a video of some guy, you know, in Korea or China or wherever, closer to the production, so he had it first, and he was just taking the hands off, but that is entirely unnecessary. I just want to make sure that it lines up properly. So that's where the hand ends up. I believe I was right the first time. No, I was wrong. You want the knuckles pointed up in jet mode. And you have the hand kind of compressed like this, pointed up, and then you can kind of test close this flap because you should be able to get it to close over the hand without it All right. Recall that this is supposed to kind of catch that bottom nozzle. So we do want this to be kind of hanging down and just facing due sideways. We just want to make sure it's not going to get caught on that lip as you go to close it. You just want it to actually get inside that lip. Now we're going to get the other arm lined up. I think you can actually... Nah, I'm just going to leave it loose for now. I think it's the smart move. So here comes the other arm. Goes on an accordion. We're just looking to pass just the elbow through because there's not a lot of space for anything else to pass through, but we want to get that flap under. We want to pass the elbow through, and then we're home free. We got it. So I do need to turn the hand completely over and make sure it's compressed real tight. I do want to make sure that this flap is open and the wheels are out of the way, so there's a big void there to put the hand in. And then we want to make sure that we tab that tab, and that we want to make sure that these ornamental flaps right here are making it inside the fuselage as we close the hips up. And you can see we're just going to bring it all together in the middle. Get ready. Hold on a second. It's a little easier when you have it in your lap instead of holding it out at arm's length, so take from that what you will. Just making sure everything's tabbed together. I do like to still have these up, by the way, for my own reasons. It'll make sense later, especially going to jet mode. So all this is going to come together. We can do it by degrees to make sure that everything is lined up. It's going to capture that upper of the two nozzles from this point of view. Those two flaps are going to go and tab together. Everything else is going to tab together. And you can see if that nozzle wasn't sideways like that, you would be in trouble, and it's real hard to fix it once you actually stitch it together. So we're making sure that tab is actually going to go in there between the two arms, and everything comes together. I'm going to make sure that this isn't discombobulated. There we go. So this actually tabs pretty well here, these flaps here. It will in a minute. I want to make sure that this tabs. I want to make sure that this is aligned. So the cockpit can kind of come loose from here a little bit. So that is kind of a separate step once you get the legs stitched together that you fix the cockpit. But I'll do it now. See if I still have to do it in a minute. So make sure you control these plates so that they don't flop out on their hinges. You're trying to get them to snap together. Snapping the whole tail together. Making sure that the flaps underneath snap together. Making sure that this snaps together and this snaps together, and you're just kind of chasing the seam all the way around until everything is stitched together. This might be, I'm hopeful that since I've realized a couple of things during this, that it's like if you have to talk about it, it kind of makes it a different experience, even if you've done it dozens of times. But I mean, I think this is going to be one of the best stitched attempts I've made. So you don't want these tabs are up. I don't think it hurts to make sure that they're fairly flat. But our goal is, let's talk about goals again. This is off center somewhere. Well, I do have to fit that together at some point. But our goal is those two tabs are going to end up on these two, or the two inner tabs, I think. Are going to end, no, the outer ones. I am correct. But those slots are going to end up on the top of those two tabs. So that's coming in our future. We do need to finish putting this bit together. The main reason I did like all these flaps in plane mode at the beginning of the video is just because I didn't want to have to keep turning the thing over repeatedly. And since it was already in plane mode, you can get this shit out of the way at that point. But going back here and doing it live, we can do it differently. So that goes in. You kind of chase this bit into the void between these, and it has lots of tabs. And you know, your goal is just to get it to actually tab. I'm just kind of compressing in this direction. All right, and then I'm going to save these flaps for last because they really will just become discombobulated while I'm doing everything else. So we can get this kind of out of the way if we can. We do want to start compressing in these bits here. We want to chase this into position. Let me get it on camera. We're just putting the whole thing together. Just get this to go in the right position. There's like a flap on the back here, a tab on the back that gets in the way too. So it's like a little dance to get it all behind what's supposed to be behind. But that's how we end up. It has to be in front of that. There we go. And it just doesn't hurt when you're wrestling with something like this to just constantly test fit what you've done so far to make sure that it's coming together, that everything's lined up properly. So that is our goal at this point, is to make sure that all that's flat. I want to make sure that this is flat. Flat, 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 flat. I actually had trouble with one of these, I think this one popping loose, not holding on this peg right here. And on this stitching effort, I think I've got it lined up well enough that that's not happening. That's really nice. This still seems like it's caved in. I don't know why. Okay. Just as long as everything's still lining up, it should be okay. So let's get these wings flipped over and put in place. You want to make sure the winglets are locked in position. You want to make sure that these flaps are flipped out. Want to make sure that somewhere along the way you changed your, because you know, like in robot mode, you kind of do this. You kind of do this in robot mode. You want to make sure it's flipped out. Flipped out, man. You can test fit this just to get a feel for what it is, but you know, there's a tab there and another tab there, and it all tabs together. But we're not doing that yet. The problem is the winglets are totally in the way, and there's no way to get them out of the way. So the bigger wings have to kind of accommodate them. So we're just flipping this over so the big wings can end up under, you know, so like the missiles can end up like that. All right, getting closer and closer. This is one of the trickier parts to get lined up properly, but I say you go ahead and get the wings tabbed into themselves first. Make sure your missiles haven't ended up on top of your winglet, because now you got to flip the wing open again. But I am just getting those tabs engaged there so it's nice and square. I forgot to do something, so now I'm going to undo that for a second and do it. There's like ornamental piece that flips over like this. It needs to be like this in plane mode. Sorry. It actually does tabs, so there's a loud popping noise because it tabs into a slot there, but it's just ornamental. Okay, so we're starting to put the wings. There we go. And then this is the tricky part for me. One of them. You might think, like, theoretically, like, oh, I just want to go ahead and have these flaps down and like all this is going to pop in there, but I don't think it does very well. So that's why I leave these flaps up. Somehow the hand became. Just make sure the hand's out of the way. There we go. Just I'm test fitting, you know. But these come over and they mate in the middle, and I could see those joints failing at some point. So you kind of stitch these together in the middle, and then you're trying to stitch these together, and you can totally push them too far, and then you're kind of popping it loose and redoing it. But we're trying to lower these down like together. So I start putting those in, and I bring these down, and I bring this. I make sure these are staying together, and they're not. So yay me! I'm just gonna bring it up in the middle, and see if I can get the light source a little further away so it's not washed out. So you see they're kind of at an angle right now, and you know it's starting to come together. Remember, we can hold the tip of that to make sure that these tabs actually end up under. Come on, buddy, you can do it. Final stretch, man, final stretch. All right, here we go, and it's not quite going in. There we go. So we got all that to stitch. It left a little space for like the lumpier parts of the arms to poke through, which is fine. It's a better jet than anything I've ever seen, so there you go. The final thing we need to do, or the first thing we need to do in the other direction, is to really push on this and get these tabs here to pop into the legs. And the whole thing kind of tabs up. So you just have to. I discombobulated. What a crime. You got to be really careful with this. Thank you. All right. Oh, you son. All right, come on now. Come on, just relax. What you got? What you got, son? There you go. There you go. You settle down. Sure that goes there. I'm gonna leave this out. I'm gonna try a different way, because this is the one with the flap that's closest to the front. So, but the wings actually do tab into the fuselage along here, so we do want to make sure that this is far enough out so it's not compressed, and we want to make sure it's going to actually hit the tabs on the wings. We want to make sure that this tab gets compressed here. Leave it completely out and see what I get away with. And it's not quite tabbing somewhere, so we're just getting it lined up. There's a tab right there. Come on, buddy. There we go. Almost. The fronts of the wings came loose. Pain in the ass. Let's just try this. Come on now. Come on, little buddy. What you doing? Why don't you love anymore? All right. Making sure this stays compressed in this direction. And leaving these flaps up for now because they just end up inside. All right. I think we got one wing. And the other wing, assuming everything's still straight, and I assume it is, then let's see if we can get this to tap. Come on, man. I don't think you can get away with that. There we go. Tab. Tab. Come on, man. Come on, you son of a bitch. One tab. You can do it. It's just a flap. Don't panic. You have to make sure that, remember those slots I showed you on the back of this line up with tabs on the arms, so you do have to make sure that those lock down. So you push right where they are. We're getting closer and closer. Let's see if I can get away with this flap trick that I thought of. So we're gonna, these are mostly closed. We don't want them too far. We're gonna flip this and catch it in front of that one. So far, so good. This one we're gonna angle and we're gonna try to catch that and then also get this flap. See, it's a little tricky because it's still on top. But just get it to stitch. There we go. Oh, that's coming together real nice. That's a real close fit for everything. The winglets seem to take a lot of load keeping everything straight in the front, but tis what tis. Just trying to compress it. Because now that you've got like the tabs of the flat, you know, the underside like kind of pegged in behind the red and, you know, back here, you're trying to get it to kind of really sit tight and catch that bottom plate, and also just kind of make sure everything compresses together and doesn't end up discombobulated. Here's the wing. I've been having trouble with this side being kind of like flopped in for a while, and I don't know why. I don't know why it's being difficult. Yeah, I mean, that's there. Okay. It just seems like it's more angled than the other one. Like the other one's kind of straight, and this one's kind of like angled. I don't know why. I did something wrong somewhere. Or, you know, it's just not gonna line up perfectly. Anyway, that's pretty much it. All right, so we can flip out these flaps. They're easier to do first because otherwise they bind and pop off, which is what this one did. So, bring these flaps down. This wing came untabbed, but no biggie. No biggie. All right, come on now, come on, man. It's not caught, you know, it's not compressed. There we go. And really, we can go ahead and pop out the landing gear while we're at it. Let's do it. Pop it out. Now we're gonna pop out this one over here. And then we're gonna flip out the landing gear. There we go. Then we're gonna flip out this landing gear. Alrighty then. And then we're gonna flip out the nose cone landing gear. We're gonna put the nose cone back together. It fell apart. Thanks, nose cone. Little parting gift from the nose cone. You wanted to take out my landing gear. Well, sir. Well, sir, you're sadly mistaken. You're not going to have it. There we go. Yeah, I did it off camera. Trust me, there's a landing gear. And then, you know, pretty much the last thing I want to do, once everything is right, is I want to bring these down. And you can bring them down at, like, you can kind of capture the outward hinge too much, and they won't stick out far enough to, like, catch the plate. So we do want to make sure that we bring, like, the outer hinge first to kind of straighten it out a little bit, because we're using some of the length of that to make sure that it actually matches up over here. This also kind of helps keep the red part straight, but it just kind of lightly tabs in, and that's why I do it last. And this is popping out again, and you make me mad, you make me sad. But if you just stitch together, I'll be glad. There's probably a few more things to learn about this thing if you really wanted to get it stitched perfectly, but the materials in the build might limit your ability to succeed in that endeavor. This one I'm having trouble with because it's the one that was like too far in. So I'm going to see if I can use the flap to push on it. Oops, went too far. I lost control of it. I couldn't get it to hold together, and it just escaped me again. Let's start further out. There we go, catch that, and then push in the, nope. And push in the angle. Yeah. Yes. Yes, close. Pretty close. I'm going to call myself happy with it. You'd probably drive yourself crazy. Oh, also the tail fins unfold. Okay. And an F4 Phantom is, the tail fins aren't supposed to be flat. It's supposed to be like a flechette, like the back of an arrow, like the veins of an arrow. I think they're a little bit off being perfectly like an isosceles triangle. So, you know, like a little bit, you have to kind of guess it. The flaps themselves do have like a bevel to them that mates up with the side, so you get a little bit of a clue like where they're supposed to be, but there's a lot of interpretation there. It's about like that. Make sure this is in. Really wants to this wants to pop out constantly. I'm gonna rip the flaps off here in a minute. So I'm just gonna be happy with what I have and stop fucking with it. There we go. So that was challenging. Transforming it back to a robot. I tried to make notes along the way to tell you things to watch out for. Hopefully you learned from those, because I'm already, what, an hour and 2 minutes into this. I've been very thorough, but I'm not going to transform it back. Not in camera. It's a great jet mode. It's like the best jet mode ever. Other than like the Macross jets, they're kind of designed to be jets from the ground up. They're not trying to like hit a particular look. Yeah, the stop motion was tricky because there's a lot of floppy parts. You have to kind of, if you have a stop motion note. Hey, this little thing will work perfectly for my demonstration. I'm just going to dump the screwdriver into this. So here's a floppy joint. You're doing stop motion. Now, if you arrange the video so that you're going to have to do this, then you're going to have like a lot of rigging that will be holding it in position. And then you're going to have to erase all that rigging, which sucks. Or, you know, you get lazy and you just have it kind of flip and you do like a blend between the two frames so people get the idea like, oh, you're supposed to go over there. But if you take that same really loose joint that you have trouble working with and you make it vertical for your video, this one's so loose that it's like maybe not a good demonstration. But if the joint is vertical, now you can, it should be a little tighter to be realistic, but now like you could set it in any position along the way of its fold, and you know, gravity's holding the thing from flopping on you. Just a little pro tip for you aspiring stop motion people. That's part of the reason when I did the legs, I had that one joint vertical so that I could flip out. You know, like where the tail packs up and flips inside the leg. That's not a very tight joint. I'm starting to regret dumping all my little tiny screwdrivers out because now I don't know what order they were in. Okay, all right, we're getting there. We're getting there. Which one's bigger? This one. This one's definitely the biggest. It's the biggest and the strongest screwdriver. There we go. All right, and we can close the little screwdriver case, and then we're going to regret screwing with this, and we're going to tell ourselves we're not going to use that as a demonstration piece again. That's for sure. There we go. I learned. Yeah. Hey, look, it's Cardboard Bots, everyone. This guy does amazing, like, entertaining reviews. He's got, like, this very colorful lighting setup, which I love. I mean, I go with a more stark representation, but Cardboard Bots is the best. You should check out his channel. He doesn't put out nearly enough stuff. I know life gets in the way, but I'm counting on you, buddy. You got to make some more cool stuff for me, for all of us, for yourself, for the children. As a WandaVision reference. WandaVision's pretty good. Exactly, like it's not like a grayscale black background. It's like it's you know, Cardboard Bots. It's a cardboard surface with like blue and red and white lights. But this guy has got great stop motion skills. And he does more animation, like they present themselves as sort of robots or characters. Oh, you're right. You have to write more, so you can't do like a video a week. I just have like I just want to show how each one's transformed. I don't care about animation. So that's a challenge. I'm not expecting a video a week, but just give me some good stuff. I remember when you did Fans Toys Brawn. There, you did like a flap, like one of the flaps on the back of the truck. Like had to flip up, so it flipped up. And oh my God, you must have taken 24 pictures flipping that flap up. I was very impressed with how smooth that was. Very smooth animation. And the scripting is great. Just gushing about cardboard bots. It's funny that people don't come to my live streams. I've had live streams like a lot more people and a lot more comments, and it's like there's a whole group of people that just don't even show up anymore. I don't know what's up with that. But they're missing out. This is the good stuff. Do we have any robot news we can discuss? No, I'm already an hour and a half into this. Let's do this. The next time I do a simple figure, which will be like next week, right now on plsdrew.locals.com for a mere $2 a month, you could subscribe. You can have the great swelling pride of knowing that you are supporting this insipid activity. And then you get, as a reward for your patronage, you get a video a week before it shows up on YouTube. So let's say you've had this guy and you're like, when's P.L.S. Drew going to post his video on YouTube? I've already got it. The instructions are insane. How can Calgon take me? There's got to be a better way. So you could have paid $2 measly little dollars, of which, I only get 94 cents. I started at $5 and people were like, $5? And I was like, well, shit. The less you go to, the less you actually get yourself. Anyway, if you want to donate 94 cents in the form of $2 to me, then you get a video a week early. Right now, this week on Locals is Kalavinka, which is Big Firebird Toys, weird little simple jet. But it's cool. I like it. And I'm shooting this week, Sunday, I'll be shooting... Shozy Store sent me like a free sample of their... it's Transformers Prime RC, the blue motorcycle. And it's been painted by this KO company to be like really shiny, like almost anodized shiny. And it chips a little bit, the paint. So it's not going to be the best presentation by the time I should practice on mine. And just, yeah, but you have to know the figure itself. Anyway, that'll be a real short transformation, not very complicated. But I love doing Transformer Prime figures. So when Shozy Store offered the figure to me, I was like, well, I was probably going to get around to her sometime anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and shoot that. There is a company that is kind of like, there's a lot of KOs of Transformers Prime stuff now. I'm going to give like a lot of credit to Hasbro because they designed it. But that's what I do with the KO. The stalks the panels are on? Oh yeah, I mean you like here's like a little stalk. This is that plastic I was talking about that's kind of like nylon. Like it's a really tough, it's not completely like crystal hard, so it doesn't get stress marks as easy. I mean, it's probably a soft enough material that you could twist the thing right off if you weren't careful, but I don't know, be careful. Anodized. It's very blue. It's like a shiny, shiny blue, that motorcycle. I've been practicing with it, trying to figure out, where I'm going to put stuff and how I'm going to arrange the hinges. Putting super glue on the joints because the thing showed up and hip joints were super loose, and I'm like, this thing can't stand while I'm doing stop motion. Sometimes you just gotta put a little glue on the joints. Some people swear by doing like wax or like the stuff that's like specially made, that's basically floor wax, but maybe slightly improved material, chemicals. But I never quite liked the wax idea because it makes it more of a mess. And the thing I like about super glue is it dries to like a white powder, and if push comes to shove and the powder flakes off, it's just like it's white powder. It's gone. You don't have to worry about it. Whereas, if you use like floor polish or whatever specialized stuff that works that way, then... But, the trick with super glue, of course, is if you put super glue on a ball joint and then you pop the cup on. You don't want to leave it. You got to like make sure the joint doesn't actually glue. You're turning the super glue into like an anti-lubricant, like a powder caught in the joint. And of course, it's super glue, so it stays stuck partially to this, and it stays stuck partially to this, and then in between is like, kind of like a gritty super glue layer where the super glue on one half and the other half, here's the ball and the super glue here. They're kind of like, it's kind of like frictiony, like it's getting caught on itself, even after it dries. Hey, look at that! Cardboard Bots gave me a super chat of $2. What a great guy. Quality watchers, not quantity. Exactly. The hardcore, the central, the elite. The people that do super chats. Cool, dude. Appreciate it. I am going to sign off because now it's been like an hour and a quarter. I don't know. I just keep rambling on because I'm like, well, there's people listening. I can tell them stuff until they get bored and wander away. What do I have in the pipeline? Kang Toys Firmament is on its way, theoretically, someday. It's been moving for like a week. I don't know where it is or what it's doing. I don't know if it's even thinking about me. It's very frustrating. The Devil Savior Overload, so like the hips of the combiner, that is theoretically on the way as well. I pre-ordered the New Age toys. I think it's New Age. I get them confused. I think it's New Age. New Age has something called Darius, which is a very clever little Galvatron. And so, considering I've done other like Legends scale figures, like this guy, I've done other Legend scale figures or deluxe sized figures. So I'm gonna do that Darius. It looks cool. And what else do I have that I would actually shoot? I don't know. Lots of stuff on pre-order, but I don't know when any of it's dropping. I did order the entire set of those train bots, the 6 that go together into the train by Moon Studio. Moon Studios. And then I've also ordered those really hyper realistic aerial bots that are very Chug style, not very MP style, but very old school, sort of lots of details and surfaces and facets. But they look like the planes might actually be almost as good as this. The planes look like they're really clean. So those look cool, and all the usual stuff. Masterpiece Starscreams, out there on the horizon, tantalizing us. It's tricky because if they release Starscream, Thundercracker, and Skywarp simultaneously, I would buy the Skywarp. I would save money and be like, if I got to get one, I'm getting the Skywarp because that's my favorite. It's like black and purple. What's not cool about that? But I always end up having to get Starscream because it's the first release of that mold is always Starscream. Whatever new mold. So I guess I'm gonna have to figure out. Maybe I'll just wait for some KO to come out with a Skywarp. I just don't know that I want to spend like another whatever that price is, $240, whatever it's gonna be. And then like if you're forced to buy Starscream and then you buy Skywarp because you like Skywarp, then come on, why aren't you buying Thundercracker? Don't you want all three? Don't you want all 3 Seekers? Oh, what about the Coneheads? Don't you need the Coneheads? And what about the Rainmakers? So, Seekers are always a slippery slope. Well, I'm looking forward to your video, Cardboard Bots, in a day or so. Everyone subscribe to his channel, and then all like 9 of us, Cardboard Bots, and I already am. So 7 of you run right out and subscribe to Cardboard Bots. New video coming up in a couple of days. Putting them on notice. Put himself on notice. New video in a day or so. We're taking your word for it, buddy. Everyone have a nice day and a nice evening, and I hope Thursday is really good for you, and Friday I hope that's really good, and then Saturday, and then Sunday I'll have my live video, and then I'll just kind of end this stream because I don't know what I'm talking about.